I listen to
Pretty good? Yeah. Where would you want me to be? Okay, that's fine.
We're terribly embarrassed, so.
You can just go to the beach here. We'll drive to it.
And I can't even go it's just what it's just they do this. It's a format.
Oh, so it's like
To be honest, it's just
I came in it's, I know it's really so much, but yeah, the whole thing is for money. Okay. So we're good. Okay. I took my class. Okay. I already just told you with 2 more.
Yeah, I could try that. I mean, it's not even just as I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be part-time, so yeah. I felt trying something. I'm very excited. I am.
The light of the camera. They wouldn't be Yeah.
But it's probably, I think, so it's like they think it's right. But it does feel calming. Not anymore. Oh, I Oh, that's
That's
So you see, I have already started doing the job of federalism.
Good afternoon. Let's see. Good afternoon. I'm Howard Walpe, Director of the Africa Program here at the Wilson Center, and I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to the Wilson Center this afternoon, and particularly our very special guest, Governor Orji Uzor Kalu, the governor of Abia State in Nigeria, and someone who has indicated his intention to stand for the presidency in the 2007 presidential elections in Nigeria. This is the governor's first appearance at the Wilson Center, so very briefly, but just by way of introduction to the governor. The Wilson Center was established by an act of Congress in 1968 as the living memorial to President Woodrow Wilson. President Wilson was the first and only American president to have a PhD and was a university professor, university president, and was very much committed to the interface between the world of ideas, the world of public policy, and that's the purpose of the center, to serve as a neutral, nonpartisan forum to stimulate discussion, debate, reflection, research on a host of national and global issues. Today's forum is on, subject is reform, accountability, the future of Nigerian federalism. Our speaker comes out of the private sector. He is the owner of the largest newspaper in Nigeria. He's involved in several banks throughout West Africa. He has been in trade and in manufacturing activities before his involvement in the public sector. He was elected executive governor of the Abia State and was one of Nigeria's youngest governors in 1999. He is a former fellow at Harvard University. He's had a number of roles in different institutional capacities inside Nigeria and in his various governmental related to his various governmental responsibilities. He served as a member of the Federal House of Representatives from 1992 to 1993 and held two key positions of Deputy Chairman of the Finance and Internal Affairs Committees. He has over 200 traditional titles to his honor, has written several books, and has received several local and international awards for his leadership in business, including the Industrialist of the Year Award from the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, the 2003 Leon Sullivan Leadership Achievement Award by the World Bank, and the National Merit Award of the Member of the Order of the Niger, just to mention a few. Today, he will be addressing the changing role of state and local governments in Nigeria and their relationship to the national federal system. And he'll also be discussing strategies to promote reform and good governance in Nigeria, particularly at the state and local levels. With that, I'm again very pleased to welcome you, His Excellency Governor Kalu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first of all want to appreciate everybody in this room for coming this afternoon. It's just by God's grace. It's not even by our own grace that we are here this afternoon. So I want to appreciate.
It's on. It is on.
I want to appreciate every one of us in the room, and I want to say thank you for coming, because I can see that the room is filled to capacity. I want to say that it pleases God that we should be able to be here. I have been downstairs in one of the rooms talking to about 15 to 20 people, mostly academicians from many universities, and one or two other ambassadors that were in Nigeria. I want to recognize Ambassador Preston Lehman. Is he gone?
Yes, right back there. Princeton.
Ambassador Lehman.
Oh, did he? Okay.
And I want to appreciate Ambassador Howard Jetta. And I genuinely want to appreciate everybody in this room. So may we clap for ourselves. The topic today is not going to genuinely be lecture or a talk. It's going to be a discussion like I did for the past 1 hour with so many of us downstairs. It's going to just be a different discussion, a discussion that takes us from the geographical entity called Nigeria, and was a creation of British colonial masters who, in furtherance of their self-interest and for administrative purposes, brought together over 250 ethnic groups under one nation. They never gave any thought to the social, cultural, and language differences among these diverse groups. In proposing, In proposing the unification, the leaders of this group, who could be called the founding fathers of Nigeria, were aware of these differences, still went ahead to cohabit in the belief that bringing their resources together, they will be able to build a united, a formidable nation. They settled for what we call today federalism as a form of government. Nigerian federalism was born in 1954 with power share between the two tiers of government, with one tier controlling the foreign relations, defense, currency, common legislative, and other external policies, while the other subordinating states taking care of local affairs. To facilitate this form of government, Nigeria was divided into 4 regions, which each comprising people of similar cultural and linguistic orientation. By 1963, a new constitution was born, and it was constitution that set in motion a chain of political events in the country. The 1963 constitution contained 4 constitutions, one for each region, that operated concurrently, with the federal constitution having an overriding influence. In fact, whenever there was a conflict between the regional constitution and the federal constitution was taking precedence. Interestingly, each regional legislative assembly fashioned its own constitution to suit its individual needs. However, the regional constitution were not separate documents per se. Rather, they were made shadows to the federal constitution. I know in the United States that all the states have their own constitution. Remarkably, Constitution making had been a matter of repeated discourse in our polity. Apart from 1963 Constitution, the other constitutions like 1979, 1999 constitutions were all products of the military government. The 1977 Constitution Drafting Committee, set up by the then head of state, our present President Olusegun Obasanjo, led to the birth of 79 Constitution and the interment of a civilian regime led by Alhaji Shehu Shagari. The same committee established by the late Sani Abacha in 1994 ultimately led to the 1999 Federal Constitution. Even though the preambles to the 1979 Constitution and 1999 Constitution ascribe the production of a constitution to the people, it's general knowledge that they were decreed by the military. Nevertheless, the constitution, whether decreed by the military or passed into law by the people, has a common objective, and is to define how the people will be governed. The successful implementation of any constitution depends on how much it is respected by those whose duty is to uphold it. In developed democracies like across the world, the constitution is the pivot on which democracy stands. America is a good example of where constitution thrives, and this is responsible for huge success it has recorded in every aspect of its national life. In Nigeria, the reverse is the case. The first casualty of any military coup is the constitution, which suspends with succor in place of decrees. Disrespect for constitution is rampant in Nigeria. The unfortunate thing that is that those who should ordinarily stand up in defense of the constitution are those who abuse it. Sadly, the 1999 Constitution is the worst hit. Under the present civil dispensation in Nigeria, court orders and constitutional amendments have been flagrantly disobeyed by those in authority. The continual withholding of federal allocation is money due to Lagos State government, to the local councils in Lagos State, even after the Supreme Court ruled that the funds will be released, is an abuse of court process. No reason whatsoever can justify the non-release of those funds. Several other instances are about to show the lack of respect for constitution in Nigeria. It is unfortunate that time may not permit me to go into them all, but the truth has been told that our democracy is continually in danger if the constitution is not rigorously followed. Let me, however, state that nothing is wrong with the content of the 1999 Constitution or any other constitution for that matter. The problem lies with the operators of the Constitution, who for selfish reasons jettison the document for their own selfish interests. Our present federalism can be safely said to be lopsided and fraught with crises which are mainly man-made. It is the imbalances in our federal system that is responsible for many problems that beveil it. One trend has emerged since 1996, and that is that the concentration of power has moved from regions to the center. This pattern has remained consistent since time leading power residing at the center, even though the separation of power embodied in the Constitution have not restituted this obvious aberration. The agitation for power by various ethnic groups and nationalities in Nigeria is a product of leaving the center with too much power. Every ethnic group in Nigeria sees presidency as a do-or-die affair. Individuals can do unthinkable things to win the presidency. In my thinking, the present craze for presidency can be checked if the center is made less attractive and if power is zoned among the states and or 6 geopolitical zones. It is therefore a thing of joy that the National Political Reforms Conference has recommended the rotation of power among the 6 zones in the country. The zones are presently constituted equitably representative in various ethnic and sub-ethnic groups in Nigeria. I wish to state, however, ladies and gentlemen, that the long jam in ongoing political conference, which has just ended in Nigeria, in which is traceable to external influences, it has since been established that some highly placed persons with secret agenda have tried fruitlessly to force the conference to make some recommendation that will perpetuate them in power. Let me warn that Nigerian peace and unity will be threatened if anybody attempts to circumvent the decision reached by the conference. It may not be out of place to conclude that the wielding of too much power by the center has breed corruption and other anti-people policies. The way our constitution is modeled has provided sufficient enactment to make our federalism work. For instance, the issue of state police has elicited and heated argument among the operators of government, but the constitution is quite clear on the matter. But the recent ruling by Supreme Court has reinforced the position of the constitution. There is nothing wrong with the states establishing their own police. It is a common practice in advanced democracies for states to make their own laws for the smooth governance of the people. In America here is deep-rooted. The issues I recommend should be urgently tackled if the future of federalism could be guaranteed. They include taking another look at the composition and operation of the police and other security agencies, INEC, National Independent Electoral Commission, census, resource control, and labor matters to create more conducive atmosphere that will be able to employ more Nigerians. These items now on the exclusive legislative leave should ordinarily be handled by states and in some cases the local governments. Looking at this matter and considering the little success we have achieved as federation, it could be rightly said that we are practicing a unitary system of government and not federalism. Corruption and national development. Corruption has posed about the greatest obstacle to national development. Past administration paid lip service to the campaign to promote accountability and probity, with little to show. The first open battle against corruption and graft in Nigeria sector was declared by former head of state, the late General Murtala Mohammed, in 1976. May he so rest in peace, because he was a great leader of Nigeria, though a military man. Although his dream was short-lived, he succeeded in making a statement that our social fabric was endemically corrupt. Then he entered the administration of Buhari Idiagbon regime in 1983, which introduced famous war against indiscipline. The whole concept of war against indiscipline was reordered our national life by promoting those ideas and ethos that foster growth and development. This administration was again short-lived by a military coup that took place on August 27, 1985. Between 1985 and the emergence of the present regime, the Nigerian nation had been under a throes of corruption. In fact, corruption had assumed the scope of pandemia, such that it is spreading with the intensity of cancer. The situation is rift, especially in public sector, where it has now become a way of life, so to speak. The President Obasanjo's government in 2001 introduced the anti-corruption law aimed at curbing corruption in every space of our national life. The Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, was set up to superintend the law. This was followed by establishment of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, which I pointed out I do not see any difference between ICPC and EFCC. The only difference is in name. It is important to state that I strongly oppose the introduction of ICPC. At the time, I even went to Supreme Court to challenge the legality of that organization. Not that I was technically in support of corruption, but because I felt the laws were a sheer duplication of existing laws in our penal and criminal codes, fashioned to take care of corruption and related offenses. Again, I foresee that the law will be used as a weapon of vendetta by government officials against perceived enemies. The slow enforcement of the law is indicative that the law is being applied selectively. Is it not strange that no person of substance has been jailed under the law since it came to force in 2001? I have always argued that the fight against corruption can only make sense when it is fought from the top down. Many of those already being prosecuted under the law are small thieves who have nobody to speak for them, while the big fishes stack away millions of dollars overseas walk streets free. What an irony. The ICP's chairman, Justice Murtala Akombi, drove what I looked like a nail into the coffin of the anti-corruption war when he said recently that the top government officials who are Mr. President's men were frustrating the effort of his commission at fighting corruption in Nigeria. The era between 1985 and now has witnessed the worst cases of corruption in Nigeria. This position was justified by the rating of as one of the most corrupt nations in the world by Transparency International. Though defenders of government policies and programs put up a spirited defense, yet nobody up to date has shown convincing evidence to challenge the rating of Transparency International. The truth is that many highly placed Nigerians, especially our leaders, are neck deep in corruption. Their bogus lifestyles cannot be justified. They acquire ill-gotten wealth to the disadvantage of the poor masses of our country. The Abia example. It is on record that Abia State is first state in Nigeria to put a mechanism in place to tackle corruption. In our 10-point development package, we place premium on strengthening transparency, accountability in our public service. We envision that nothing concrete will be achieved unless we destroy corruption. We started by changing the attitude of our public servants to work by making them see themselves as partners in the development of our state. Today, our public servants are more dedicated to their duties than ever before. They come to work early, put in their day's work, and carry themselves with integrity and honor. Through this new orientation, we have succeeded in lifting the state from its position of backwardness in 1999 to a rich economy in Nigeria. When the outgoing president of World Bank visited Abia in company of Mrs. Konjiwal, our present finance minister, he expressed satisfaction with the transformation that had taken place. He was particularly pleased with the rich technological base of Abia State and promised to assist the artisans and craftsmen. Let me state that Abia State has the potentiality to supply all technological needs of Nigeria if encouraged. The rich culture and tourism of the state is a big attraction to foreign investment and visitors. By running a people-oriented, transparent government, we have succeeded in commanding the people's confidence and making them co-promoters of government policies and programs. This has led to greater peace and progress in our state. In fact, our state is one of the fastest and most peaceful states in Nigeria today. We won this accolade because our state is the only state in Nigeria that is yet to record any political killing since May 1999 when our government came into office. What I am talking about is that there are a lot of political disagreement among parties and all the rest of them. And our states have been on constant raid by the police that no political disagreement killing, like I disagree because you are in opposition, go and burn your house or we do this, have never happened in our state. This is because I believe so much in what God can do, and I also believe in mercifulness of God. And if the leader on top is a little bit upright, the other society people will follow him. Most leaders encourage killing. As a leader, I see every part of our state as my constituency. I have served with the fear of God, love of our neighbor, and respect for the Constitution. Our government comprises men and women of diverse political, religious, and tribal leanings. Personally, I have demonstrated that it takes support of the people for one to make any meaningful impact in leadership. I have worked very hard to provide the people quality dividends of democracy. Today, education and health care are free at all levels in our state. We have done all this in order to empower the people and make them more responsive and responsible to their civic duties. Reforming for better governance. I am in the vanguard of those who are absolutely in support of reform. But my view is that reform should be total and have human face. It should not be selective, but cover every facet of our national life. Reform, in whatever form that it produces the liberty of the people, is not but autocracy. President Obasanjo's economic advisors have done well in packaging the reform. I say this because the benefits have begun to trickle in. The recent debt relief granted Nigeria by the Paris Club is a visible pointer that the reform is well accepted by the international community. Nevertheless, the government should look inward to see what can be done to alleviate the sufferings of our people. The reform of the power sector is yet to produce the desired result. The federal government has sent over $200 billion naira on the sector. Yet electricity is still epileptic. There is no way Nigeria can revive its economy without first achieving an optimal result in the power sector. This is so because on the sector rests the survival of other sectors. In Abia State, for instance, there are over 1 million artisans that depend on electricity to operate. These artisans provide support base for the industrial sector that has the capacity to produce whatever Nigeria needs in area of technology and commerce. Reform, as it concerns the political life of our country, is an aspect that is receiving attention from the Obasanjo's administration. The setting up of the Political Reform Conference is aimed at re-engineering the political system to create the capacity to redress some of the anomalies in the system. The conference ran into crisis at a time while a sharp disagreement over resource control. The emerging truth from the conference is that many issues which ought to were swept under the carpet and have been uncovered, and if properly addressed, will produce permanent solutions to some of the problems of social, economic, and political inequality and imbalances in our economy. Nigeria's foreign policy is stepped on an unparalleled misdirection. The policy which began the reign of Shehu Shagari between 1979 and 1983 is articulated by the self-centered pursuit of some of the key policy formulators. The present administration in Nigeria is achieving popularity for itself by some of the will and relief it had won from donor agencies and international financial institutions. The country's economic policy is tied somewhat to its foreign policy. This position is true because international communities' foreign policy is anchored on the economic interests. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have more than a passing interest in affairs of Nigeria. This explains its strong grip on the management of Nigerian economy, which it has achieved through subtle cohesion and underhand tactics. However, kudos should be given to the government of President Olusegun Obasanjo in peacekeeping operations in many countries in Africa. It is important that this humanitarian gesture is sustained because of the big brother role Nigeria plays in Africa. The level of aid to poor and war-torn countries in Africa by Nigeria should be raised, especially in the Darfur region, where the carnage has intensified. Nigeria should use its position of the chairmanship of the African Union to prevail on President Mugabe to stop the mass demolition going on in parts of Zimbabwe. The allegation that demolition is targeted and perceived enemies make the whole thing reprisal. I have singled out the 2003 election for special mention here because of the lesson it has offered to Nigeria. Contrary to widely held view that elections were going to cause disintegration of the country, nothing serious happened to justify this fear. But one thing has left a sore on our mind, and that is mindless rigging of the election. Apart from Abia and few other states where elections were conducted, I'm happy that one of the ladies we met in the previous section were participated in the election in Abia. And I will be glad to just say that most people, both the USID, EU, have written me personally as governor of Abia State and thanking me for allowing democracy to occur in Abia State. Even though the Supreme Court in Nigeria had given a clean bill to the election, the judgment of the Court of Appeal in the petition filed by ANPP presidential candidate General Muhammad Buhari is quite instructive. The foreign observers who monitored election made it clear that elections were not free and fair. Let me, however, warn that what happened in 2003 will never be tolerated in 2007. I will personally lead a demonstration against anybody who attempts to subvert the will of the people in 2007. We tolerated what happened in 2003 because we were determined to make democracy work in Nigeria. The continual existence of Nigeria depends largely on how the 2007 elections are conducted. The people are wiser now, and we will resist any further rape on our democratic system by anybody, no matter how highly placed. Since Nigeria gained independence in October 1, 1960, the Igbo have ruled for only 6 months, and this was during the infiltrated regime of General Aguiyi, who incidentally came from Abia State. The remaining 44 years have been shared between the Hausa and Yoruba ethnic blocks. In 2003, when it was convincing turn of the Igbo to produce the president, the Igbo had to make a big sacrifice by supporting President Obasanjo's re-election just for the sake of our democracy and what happened during the June 12 crisis in 1993. It will therefore be mischievous for any other person or group to lay claim to the presidency this time around. Everything favored the emergency of Nigerian people of Igbo extraction. As a two-term governor with enviable profile, I have offered myself to serve as Nigerian president in 2007. My 10-point agenda addresses the endemic problems of Nigeria. Apart from being a successful businessman long before I became governor, I have made friends and connections across the world. In Nigeria, without sounding immodest, we have built bridges of friendship across the ethnic groups in Nigeria. My influence transcends political, cultural, and religious divides. I am one Nigeria who, when you look at me, you see genuinely the face of Nigeria, because I am at home with the Muslims, I am at home with the Christians, I am at home with those who practice no religion, because these are the avenues that we can only save Nigeria from the present problems. I was born in the East, schooled in the North, and built my vast business empire in the West. Those who know me can attest to the fact that I remain one living Nigeria who offered sometime in 1989 to donate $800,000 to help Nigeria pay its own debt at the age of 26. I became Nigeria's youngest bank chairman, a record yet to be equaled in the same period. My vision is to transform Nigeria and make it a global power. The problem with Nigeria is not availability of resources, material or natural, but that of leadership. I have worked out a package that can permanently solve electricity problem within 18 months of being in office as president. I also have a solution to the penal ethnic unrest, both in the Niger Delta and other minority areas of the North. The crisis in the Niger Delta and other parts of the country can be solved through, it cannot be solved through brute force, but through dialogue and enforcement of justice and fair play in distribution of national wealth. What we need is the support of the international communities to turn around the fortunes of Nigeria. It is to solicit your support that I have come here to address you today. I have set up structures for the realization of this goal. Some may not take me serious, but I am deeply committed to the project. It was the same way some persons took me in 1999 when I offered to serve my people as governor. To their attachment, I won convincingly in free and fair election to become governor of our state. I have faith in God, who has sustained me for the past 45 years. Will never abandon me at the darkest of my hours. I want to repeat some of the things I said downstairs, that Nigeria needs problem to solve Nigerian problem, the way forward, we need to address the issue of electricity. And when we address the issue of electricity will create an avenue where job creation will be visible. Because if we don't have electricity, there will be no small and medium-scale industries will not be able to operate. And the avenue of creating new jobs will not be there. So I believe once you are reforming, you need to reform the power sector. If we have not reformed the power sector, we have not started the reform, because it's the power sector that we need to carry over 200 million Nigerian people in a mass transit. We don't have a mass transit, and how can you cope up without being having a mass transit that will be able to take care of this population? I think a country like Nigeria also needs to refine its own oil. It's a shameful thing to hear that in 6 years of democracy, no refinery in Nigeria is working to full capacity. And I believe that with us, we will be able to privatize and allow private sector-driven economy to take place in Nigeria, which will give way for more job creation. Because job creation is the only avenue that you'll be able to sustain any economy. Without creating jobs, we have many universities. We have over 40 universities in Nigeria, graduating people every year without telling them where to go to work, without giving them opportunity on where to go. The government today should pay more attention in refining our oil. 2.7 million barrels of oil going out every day should be refined in Nigeria and be exported. And that will give more dominance to what we want to do. And that gives credence for job creation. And job creation will give security to our people. Most people who want to go and participate in wrongdoings like armed robbery, breaking of houses, it's because they have no food to eat. And when a man have got food to eat, they will not be thinking about where they will go to commit some robbery. I want to say that the relationship between the tiers of government, the local, the state, and all the rest of them in present democratic process is not cordial, because the center is still playing like if we're a unitary system of government. Nigeria is in process of going to democracy. We are halfway in democracy. I want to see a democratized Nigeria which will give rights to all people, which will give rights for people not waking up one morning and banning businesses of people, which will give rights to judiciary to be obeyed. Because if there's a problem, like I asked Mr. Chairman inside the room, if there's a problem between ExxonMobil and Nigeria, they will have no good arbitration to take place. Some of you here are lawyers. Court orders must and should be respected, and they are not being respected in Nigeria today. So I believe that for us to talk about democracy and accountability, we have to account back to the judiciary first, because the judiciary is major source where accountability can be gotten. Because if people are ready to obey the court ruling, then no matter your position, you can go to jail, like it's in America, like it's in other civilized democracies. We must be able to put package where our judiciary will be reformed and our people will learn how to obey the orders of the court. Thirdly, for us to come back to our economy, little businesses, attention should be paid to encourage people to do their small businesses. Because any economy that is not propelled by small businesses might find itself into problems, no matter how large it is. Even in America here, America is driven by small businesses. For maybe the large, mega companies will come over and buy over some of these businesses on their own and their own terms. So I would genuinely like to stop so far and possibly take one or two questions. I want to thank you for your attention and untiring friendship, and for standing behind Nigeria at its hours of need, especially during when they needed to move forward. We are moving, but we are not yet there. If we are moving, we should be there, because We are not yet there. A lot has to be done. A lot of sacrifice has to be done. You can see this is 14 months to election, a presidential election. No candidate has emerged because they are afraid that the president will jail them. I mean, this is not democracy. In America, you just handed over to another president in January this year. In 2008, there's an election. People have started in major network saying, Senator this will be president, Senator that will be. Nobody's saying, nobody's coming out in Nigeria. 14 months to the election. So you can see that if you must be a leader, they are running for their life. They are running because they don't want to die. If you must be a leader, you must die for what you believe in. You must be prepared to die on the country you want to rule and say, this is my belief. Because I believe that Nigeria should be changed, no matter who is standing on the way, no matter whose horse is on the street, we must remove it and make a new Nigeria. People are afraid to do that. And I'm doing that today, saying, yes, I want to be president, because I feel they are running away because our leaders think they can extend their stay. So I want to thank everybody for listening to us. Thank you, and once again, we are very happy that you are here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that very comprehensive view of your assessment, really, of Nigeria's political evolution and of your own perspective on a variety of issues. We would like now, as is customary here, to turn it over to the audience and invite questions. I would ask each person, if you would not mind, to please, so we can have maximum number of questions in the 40 minutes or so time remaining. If you could restrict your intervention to a question, and would you please identify yourself and your affiliation. Let's begin right over here. Mr. Barber. Oh, yeah, we will be passing, because this is being telecast, we'll be passing the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Governor, and thank you for the talk. My name is Ed Barber. I work for Good Works International. And I was intrigued by your comments about corruption. Of course, we've all seen a lot of that over the years. But a few weeks ago, we had a visit here. We're privileged to have a visit by Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, who talked about the prosecutions he is pursuing, the convictions he's achieved, including against some fairly high-ranking people, former Inspector General of Police, former President of the Senate, a couple of sitting governors, and so on. And he was pretty convincing, and I was wondering, I was a little surprised to hear you say that there were no big fish that had been targeted by any of the corruption scandals. Could you comment further on this? Do you think that the Commission has not gone far enough, or that some of these claims are not have been exaggerated, or what would be your take? Thank you.
Nuhu's something is still being teleguided. Those people they are getting are people who failed out with the federal government. They are not genuine people. I mean, I don't respect that as a governor of Abia State. Nuhu should, if Nuhu got evidence that the president used his office to raise funds for his library. Have you seen any sitting president raising money to do library? I expect Nuhu to prosecute the president. So we know that the anti-corruption is a real thing, because it's a violation of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria for me to sit in office and solicit for money. Yes, next question.
Let us, I want to suggest that we take about 3 questions and package them, be a little bit more efficient, I think. Question, could I have a, excuse me?
So let's just have him say it and can go.
Okay, if you prefer.
So we don't miss them.
Okay.
My name is Edu Otu, correspondent for AfricaNewscast.com. I happen to be a Ghanaian, and when you were talking, I thought at one point that you were talking about Ghana, especially when you were talking about corruption. I am delighted you want to do good for Nigeria as a people's person. I'm also delighted you want to concentrate on electricity, on power for that matter. But I would like to suggest to you to concentrate more on food production. I think that has more value than power. power to start with. And I think Ghana and Nigeria together ought to be able to feed West Africa instead of what we see going on in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Yes, what he says is the truth, but we need to concentrate on power and agriculture and education. There's a 10-point agenda that I have, and I also want to tell you that without power, we can really not go far. We need power to store. We have a lot of food in Nigeria. Go to northern Nigeria. We can export food in billions of dollars if they can be preserved. Go to the tomatoes alone in northern Nigeria, we can make $2, $3, $4 billion. And because they are not preserved from Sokoto or from Maiduguri back to Lagos, oil is not the only thing we are going to make money for. If we have electricity, we can make 20, 25 billion from agriculture. Cucumber, all kinds of things from northern Nigeria, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Question right in the back there.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mogioku, Communications Director of CDI. Mr. Governor, sir, yes. I want to argue that every problem we have in Nigeria, by the way, I'm a Nigerian, every problem we have in Nigeria can be traced back to corruption, as you said. I agree with you absolutely. That was why we were very excited some months ago when you came out flashing some paper that you had a list of corrupt Nigerians that you could release. Most of us were very excited because if you did that, that would be one step into solving problems. But it just fizzled out. What happened, Your Excellency?
Don't worry, I'm still governor of Abia State. When I live as governor, I will live as a private man. My House of Assembly have warned me I will violate the order of the state if I do anything in office that is done within our state. So I'm waiting to leave office. When I leave office, you will do that. Next question.
Over here and then over here.
I don't want to be impeached. That's what I'm telling you. I will be impeached by the House of Assembly for interfering with other state matters. They want me to concentrate on our state matter. Yes.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. My question is on what type of federalism are you imagining for Nigeria? I noticed you like to give a lot of examples of what goes on in America, but I think we all remember a time when states did have too much power in the United States. And there was a time when states didn't even want to integrate and send black children to school, and the central government had to intervene. Now with Nigeria, when you have a situation where certain states in the north are carrying on and doing what they seem to think is best, and creating laws that violate human rights, in a federalist state, in a federalist country, how do you propose for problems like that to be solved? And also, don't you think it's time?
One question.
Sorry, it's joined, believe me. You talk a lot about what Nigeria needs to move forward to, what we need to begin to do. And I'm also a Nigerian living in the States. And you've said that the presidency now needs to go back to an Igbo person. But don't we need to move to the stage where it doesn't matter what side of the nation the person comes from, as long as they do the best job?
Yes, I believe in that too. I believe in that. And when we have a true federalism, all the states, like you have Louisiana, Massachusetts, they can make laws that will suit within their own people, and that is true federalism. You make laws that suit the environment where you are living. If my people predominantly are Christian, we practice Christianity. If your people are predominantly Muslim, they practice Islam. So we don't interfere in one another's belief. But the central government should be in charge of defense, should be in charge of foreign currency, should be in charge of external relations, which your Secretary of State and all the rest of them. So people can live freely. If I decide not to live in Sokoto, why must I live in Sokoto State if I don't want to live there? People who want to live in Arkansas want to live in Arkansas because they have something to do in Arkansas. If I have something to do in Sokoto, I go to Sokoto and live. If I don't want to live in Abia, why must I live in Abia? I will go to Obomosho, Osun State and live. That is where it should be. So that is the essence of true federalism. True federalism means the kind of federalism Americans have. Yes, it's absolutely true. Because a state can make a law of its own. If you don't want to obey the laws of Islam, you leave the state.
I would like, if I may follow up with the question, Your Excellency. In the United States, we do have a Bill of Rights, and which is universal, applied across all the states, and supersedes any state law.
The state laws, yes.
Are you suggesting that in the case of Nigeria, given the cultural diversity, you would not advocate?
No. There are still moderate people in Nigeria. not the way you paint it. Not the way you paint it. I mean, there are still moderate people even in Islam, in Christianity, people are still very moderate, and it's not as bad as people are thinking. We can live if you have people who can integrate all these people and talk to them. These laws, because there are Christians also in the north, you can't throw them away. So there are federal laws that should supersede the state laws. That is what I'm saying. Because some federal laws must have precedent to the state laws for us to live together.
And did you want to respond to the other part of the question that she asked about?
Oh, no, I believe in a president that is competent. I don't even believe where it comes from. It's true. I don't believe where a president comes from, as long as it's competent to lead the people. Yes, it's the truth. But I'm also saying, if you see the state of things, I'm just saying that it's also good you rotate the presidency. Because we can rotate it for 25 years. My people have not tested it. So many other people have not tested it. So we should test it and do well and see how we can do to it. That is we put it in our constitution and say after 30 days, 30 years or 20 years, no more rotation. It's also good for it will bring peace. What I'm saying, whatever that will bring peace and harmony among the people of Nigeria to live in peace will be very important.
Yes. Question right here. I need a microphone over here, please.
Thank you. My name is Gustavo Nvella, and I'm president of the Voice of Democracy for the United States in Equatorial Guinea. I'm an Equatorial Guinean who was raised here in the States. And my question to you, sir, is I'm hearing the language, I'm hearing what you're saying and what you're not saying. And as someone whose family lived under the dictatorship of Macias Nguema, whose father was the first UN ambassador under Macias Nguema, I can't help but, as someone who wants to bring about change in a transition to democracy that is thoughtful, deliberate, mindful of the needs of the people, and one in which the efforts of those who have gone on before are appreciated, minus the rhetoric of theocracy, minus the rhetoric of federalism, but more in a way to bring about the common interest of those not only in Equatorial Guinea but in Nigeria and the region. My question to you, sir, is for those of us who are seeking to bring about a new conversation in Africa, should you, Your Excellency, attain a position of authority, will the rhetoric that you're seeing today match the rhetoric that you're seeing once you assume power? And if so,
what?
The rhetoric that you're saying today, will it match the rhetoric should you be sworn in as the next free and fairly democratically elected president? I'm educated. I went to Stanford University. We have worked very hard to bring about a change in Equatorial Guinea, which will hopefully come with the efforts of those who are like-minded in a peaceful and thoughtful manner. Will your rhetoric match today once you attain a position of authority that is respectful, mindful, and considerate of the rule of law, good governance, and transparency?
Thank you.
Well, what you said, you went to Stanford, I went to Harvard, and the same thing I taught in Harvard. To be open. We are taught to be open, and I'm going to be very open. What I have said today is what I'm going to say tomorrow. Next question.
Okay. Was the question answered, though?
Yes. No, I've answered. The answer is yes. What I said today is what I'm going to say tomorrow. I've never changed. I can never change. Yes.
There are two questions up here. Microphone, please. First, the one in front. Whoever.
Your Excellency, thank you for having us here. My name is Zamako Ibe, a Nigerian. My question, I guess, goes to the wealth of human resources that exists from Nigeria, popularly known as the diaspora. I know that a lot of other African leaders from smaller countries have worked very hard in coalescing the expatriates, the intellectuals, kind of like reversing the brain drain. What exactly, in terms of plans, do you have in reversing the number of intellectuals that I frankly believe is more wealthy than the oil in Nigeria, which is the intellectual capacity of millions of Nigerians, bringing them back and really creating wealth? What plans do you have for us?
The plan is very simple. When you give a conducive atmosphere, like he's from Ghana. Ghana celebrated 1 year of power supply some 3-4 years ago. I'm correct? Once you do that, ask him, his intellectuals, people are going back. Gradually, once you're able to give both intellectuals and all kinds of people conducive atmosphere, they will come home. They want to stay back at home, and they will work with us to develop our country. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is...
Okay. No, not me. I'm fine.
Was that
Go
okay?
ahead.
Well,
Okay.
okay. Let's take about maybe two more questions. Okay, please.
My name is Simisola Fasen. I'm also a Nigerian, and I'm representing allafrica.com news agency. My question to you is somewhat related to what he was saying, to his question. How do you want to, as a potential president, next president, hopefully, of Nigeria, how do you want to turn around productivity and manufacturing in Nigeria as it was in the past, where we could produce our own food and we had manufacturing companies?
It's going to hang on energy. There are too many companies that are closed up in my state, owned by private individual. They are closing up because in the past there was power supply. There is no power supply. And that is why I continue telling anybody who wants to hear that power is the key for any economic development. We must have power. We must have it because we need it. Once we feed ourselves, the next thing we have, like my friend said from Ghana, the next thing we have is energy. But I would prefer to have energy and be developing agriculture alongside with energy, because two of them have to go hand in hand. And that will increase manufacturing capacity. It will increase even capacity utilization by the people that want to use it in their factories. So it's the same thing.
Okay. And then a question right over here. You can take two last questions, or two hands on that side.
Yes, that will be two last questions.
Okay, great.
According to you. I don't want to overrule you.
Your Excellency, we're happy to have you in America. We Nigerians that live in America are happy to see you. We hope we have opportunity to vote from here when the election happens. You actually won my vote with the issue of power. Most people that are here, Americans, do not understand when they say power, power, power in Nigeria. They don't know what you're actually saying. If you wake up in the morning, you don't have lights to do anything. Your operations for that day is finished. You can imagine if you had a storm yesterday and lights were out, you couldn't do anything. Now, my issue when it comes to power is, if you notice what is going on globally right now, the issue of nuclear energy. And the only way to sustain 200 million people in Nigeria, whether they want to believe it or not, is to have a nuclear plant in Nigeria that produce energy. How are you able to do that and convince the United States that those nuclear energy processing we're doing right there is strictly for the energy or supplying power, and not it's going to be abused by any other person like they're doing in North Korea? Thank you, sir.
No, don't worry. I will build partnership. I will be very, very friendly with all policymakers in the United States, from the lowest policymaker to the highest policymaker. That they will understand me very well and understand what I stand for. That is very, very important.
I also hope you'll invite Amory Lovins in to meet with you before you make the decision about nuclear power. I think there's some economic issues that are not quite well understood.
No, actually, in our state, we don't need nuclear power because we have a lot of gas. We are not going to need nuclear power. In the next phase of Nigerian economy, we have lost opportunity. I was just saying it downstairs. We lost opportunity of using crude oil to turn around our economy. That opportunity is gone. The next opportunity we are going to be facing is using gas to turn around our economy. And that is where I want to start. So I believe that gas will do the magic.
And our last question, Your Excellency.
Yes.
Your Excellency, I have to admit your vision is very admirable, and I applaud your steadfastness.
You identify yourself, please.
Oh, yeah, I am Camille Olufobi. I'm with the Young Nigerian Professionals Network. And we're mobilizing the next generation of Nigerian professionals to actually get involved in the future of Nigeria. My question to you is, your vision is admirable, but one thing I believe you never really talked about is, how do you plan on energizing your base for people to actually believe in what you believe in? Because I think one of the biggest problems in Nigeria is the talk is good, but nobody's really walking the walk. How do you plan to actually energize the base, the people who are going to make that vision a reality? I mean, your constituents at home on a federal level. That's
well, we will continue preaching the gospel, and people will listen to the gospel. That is my duty, to turn around and continue preaching, giving the same message in the universities, in all places, in the marketplace, in town hall meetings. It is my duty to continue. Like I'm doing now, I'm also talking to a few people who will take one or two things back home. And I have the energy to travel around and energize my base. My base will be in good shape in 2007.
Amen.
Let me just make a quick, a brief closing observation. I shared with the governor that Nigeria, is in a sense, was my first Africa home. I began my work in Africa, Nigeria in the early 60s and lived there from 63 to 65. It was a period in which there was a tremendous sense of hopefulness about Nigeria, a remarkably robust political discourse, a celebration of diversity rather than a fear of diversity. It was a time when Nigeria really had a sense of itself as a leader in Africa. And I think those of us who were concerned about the continent had enormous hope for the Nigerian future. It seems, I think, to those of us who follow Nigeria from a distance now, that over the last few decades, that military rule has really created a number of pretty terrible legacies, the institutionalization of corruption being amongst them. But also there seems to have been lost a sense of common purpose and a sense of common destiny. It's as if all Nigerian political figures now have bought into the psychology and into the ethos of a kind of a zero-sum mentality in which they each are out to advantage themselves and believe that that can only happen at the expense of the other person. My hope is that even, and it's difficult to do this in the midst of an election cycle, which is inherently a competitive process, that Nigerians who are offering themselves up as president and that those who are involved in the political process in Nigeria will try to attempt to keep a focus upon ways of reaffirming common ground, reaffirming common Nigerian interests, and do what can be done to really embrace the search for collaborative solutions rather than simply for competitive solutions. I worry greatly, very candidly, about that future and about how rhetoric and inconsiderate rhetoric can become very divisive, unintentionally so at times. So I'm very delighted. You're the second of the prospective presidential candidates to have come through the Wilson Center. I'm sure there may be others in the future, but this is a wonderful way of beginning the conversation with both Americans generally, with the Nigerian diaspora as well. And I want to thank you for allowing yourself for being here, for sending yourself to people at the Wilson Center, and for all of you for participating in this conversation. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Oh yes, I'm on this. Hi, nice to see you. You are here.
Let me just indicate there is a reception outside of the other room, and if people are welcome to stop by the reception.
That was my other issue when I was in Congress all those years. So. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm with a group called the Solar Tribe, and we brought solar electricity to 3 villages in northern Nigeria, Abia State. We're being requested by other governors and these other colleges to come in and provide electricity to rural areas, places that have little hope of being connected to a conventional power bill. Even if it were I'm working right now. We've been getting requests from gentlemen in the DRC to provide solar power outage stations throughout the country. We want to computerize the weather stations without power, and that's not going to get very far. Here's an opportunity for solar power. Obviously, there are other opportunities in water.
I'd love to talk to you more about that soon. We really have a moment.
Okay, why don't I follow up with a call?
I'll be away for a while, probably after September, I suspect. Okay. I'd love to do that. Okay, thank you. Hi. How are you?
I actually do technology projects. We're currently doing the reorganization of the African Union. It's a pretty interesting project. So first time here, and I saw you see a conference or something, and then I heard you say conference. What exactly is this?
Well, I'm an African specialist by history. When I was, I chaired the African Association for 10 years.
Say no more, right? The name.
That's President Clinton's special envoy to the Great Lakes region more recently.
Say no Rosa, whatever. Yeah, I worked for Rosa while at business for the house or stuff.
Well, very good meeting you. I'm going home. You know that?
Otherwise known as Mr. Africa.
Professor Africa.
Let me remind you, I used to work for your colleague, Irvin Randy, as his chief of staff, Randy.
Oh, yeah, Randy, sure.
Look a little different now. I'm sure I look a little different.
This is
I like that.
It's only 8 weeks old, so okay.
I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, how are you? Well, you know, Merv has gone full circle. He's now back in the California State Legislature.
I have heard that. I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't
I
either.
heard it, yeah.
But he did. I just got back from Nigeria, and I consulted a number of energy trading companies. And I have some ideas on technology transfer with the big guys who share with me some services technology. Oil and gas, the Halliburtons of the world. Baker Hughes. In other words, take these small Nigerian companies under your arm, transfer technology, let them employ people, maybe those people will stop throwing petrol bombs and sabotaging gas lines, similar to what we have here, which was called, you may remember, the Mentor Protege Program. Sam introduced it in the Defense Authorization Act of 1990, where Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, Northrop, the big guys, we more or less take these small companies and without competitive bid, grow and develop the company through obviously the supervision of the government. So I'd like upgrade this 8-year process, technology transfer, completely voluntary. I have a trying to get some footing underneath. I made a presentation to Ambassador. I'm going to talk to Andy Young about it. I'm trying to do this without threatening the oil companies. Because if they hear anything, say, what, we want to grow it, develop our own competition. No, that's not the case. What we want you to do is get rid of some of the expatriate labor, very expensive labor, by the way. Train some of the local people, grow the indigenous companies, and become better corporate citizens. Now, how to say that is very difficult.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, maybe take a look at it. I'll send it to you. I saw you up here, and I've been meaning to show my face sooner, but I used to represent Abia.
Oh, yeah.
With the chairman?
Yeah. Okay. So when he says,
they said we need. Hello. Were you there?
Yeah.
I didn't see you, brother. Oh.
How are you? Good to see you.
Chairman, we Mr. Walker, we get to get the picture for the website. That's what they say. Where are we going to be?
Why don't you stand right about where you are there?
Oh.
Come forward towards me. Come forward towards me.
Good. Are you taking your own? Oh, I took that picture. Thanks. How are you?
I tried to get you a chat with you.
Yeah, let's.
It's not mine, is it his? I'll give it to you.
Okay. That's the one you like. I'm leaving about 6 p.m. tomorrow. But today I put up. After this, I go to see Ambassador.
They don't do it now. They gave us a copy of this speech. Someone took it from me. I'm glad I got it back.
I gotta talk to Johnny for 5 minutes.
Okay, can we get a picture?
Not now. I'll give it to somebody. I'll give it to you.
No, that's okay. Just in case he wins. Just in case he wins.
Getting ready for 6 o'clock news, huh? Getting ready for 6 o'clock news. Thank you, my brother. Yes, sir.